influential 8.2 mile BC Electric tram line between Marpole and Steveston. As a still good friend of mine insists, why do you write and talk about streetcars? Why trams or interurbans? It's easy. I grew up in Vancouver's Mount Pleasant. Our house 2 blocks from Vancouver's Mount Pleasant streetcar barns. As a 5-year-old in 1942 with my friends, the barns were a superlative attraction for kids. Playing in and around the car barns, one would often be gifted with a pack of transfers by an off-duty streetcar conductor, and so began my BC Electric archive, which today, as Kelly knows well, has outgrown house and home, but has allowed me to write 4 books on BC Electric streetcars and trams. The first one, commissioned for Expo 86, laid out by Michael, and much more, and with a preface by my friend Jimmy Pattison, and you saw the Victoria book, and Vancouver's Glory Years. There's another book, and that's The Perfect Little Streetcar System, and that's about North Vancouver. So, is it trams or interurbans? Growing up, it was always trams. My mother said, oh, we have to take the tram. We're going up to the water gardens at Garden City Station in Lulu Island. Okay, we took trams. Whereas today, we tend to call the big vehicles interurbans. I think there's a weightiness, a gravity about it. After all, they are 35 tons each. Vancouver is young. As we all know, the city was incorporated on April 6, 1886. However, are you aware that Coca-Cola preceded us by 8 days? And of course, as Michael has already asserted, Richmond, it trumped, if you'll pardon the expression, Mexico. Here we are in Richmond. It was incorporated November 10, 1879. Richmond, Lulu Island and Sea Island, was a veritable Garden of Eden. Not populated as it is today by more than 250,000 people. Lulu Island, 15 miles wide and 5 miles between the Fraser River's arms, 47 square miles in all, was evocatively described by newspapers riding the first trains across the island, probably, most likely, seeing Richmond for the first time themselves. I'm quoting from 1902, when the train started with CPR, and then a little bit from 1905, when the Interurban began. Quoting, as soon as Eburn is past Marpole, the fields, rich, level, and luxuriant, at once claim attention. Even were it pitch dark, these fields would stimulate the curiosity and engage the attention of a passenger. Acres upon acres of beautiful white and red clover are passed. The exquisite perfume from the myriad of blossoms is something that defies description. All the perfumes of Arabia would not rival the almost intoxicating odors that flow through the open car windows as mile after mile of this rich clover is passed. This is Lulu Island. It is an interesting, still quoting, study to watch the facial expression of some of the passengers in the Steveston car as this district was being passed. The man who for months, perhaps years, has been accustomed to the smell of the city's smoke, cinders, and asphalt, leans back in his seat, throws out his chest, and fills his lungs full of scented ozone. When have you last done that in Richmond? It is no ordinary growth of clover that is harvested on Lulu Island. On several fields, big husky teams were toiling to track or to drag a mower through the luxuriant mass, while in one particularly heavy growth, 2 teams were hitched to the mower. So today on Interurban, but at the same time, they drove a line across Carroll Street, Hastings, through the south side of Falls Creek, right in front of what would have been Kitsilano Pool, right out to Trafalgar Street. Steam locomotives went right out to Trafalgar Street. There are many plans that abound that show harboring facilities being contemplated there. At the same time, CPR was always on the lookout for a possibility, for a strategic possibility. They took a charter, an old charter, Vancouver and Lulu Island Railway, used that charter to build out to Steveston, and this is how it operated. It was called the Sockeye Express. It would start where we would expect it to start today at the waterfront, with the locomotive pointing to Stanley Park. Then it would back up to Main Street. And then it would take that other line through what became CPR Yard, the Roundhouse and so on, Falls Creek, across Kitsilano Trestle, and then up through Arbutus, Kerrisdale, and out to Steveston. Some heavy grades, but they did this. They lost interest quickly. They lost interest, let me read you why. When the CPR bought the Esquimalt to Nanaimo Railway, Vancouver Island, from millionaire coal miner James Dunsmuir in 1905, and consolidated their hold on Vancouver Island, the strategic value of the Vancouver and Lulu Island Railway to Steveston was lost. It meant nothing to the CPR, and the BC Electric was only too willing to lease it and expand it. Many of you will have seen that at 22nd and Arbutus, King Edward sweeps up the hill eastward. BC Electric added a track, they never used it for streetcars or interurbans, up to Granville, and thus Shaughnessy Heights was built with equipment brought up through Arbutus and up to Granville Street. BC Electric on the way. And you can see that. They leased it. Took them $180,000 to electrify, and they did that very, very quickly. In 1905, July 4, I thought I'd throw the next one in because transportation was now centered on Vancouver. The last steamship up to New Westminster, and that had been a big service, ended, as you see there, in 1908. Minaroo track. Minaroo was the king's favorite horse, thus Minaroo. The track you can see when it was open, and you'll see on the map on the other side, there is a loop that goes in there, and there's one photo that exists of a long interurban train, BC Electric of course, on that loop. Now, Minaroo was shut down at the beginning of the First World War, reopened in 1920 as Brighouse, because Brighouse owned the land. Just a little bit of history about that. Racetrack specials were always a very big feature of the Vancouver to Steveston line. 1913, that's between Marpole and Vancouver, and that was so necessary. That was expanding like no one really could have foreseen. Big years began in about late 1902, 3, and 4, and just boomed, and Vancouver was 100,000 people by 1910. Then we come to 1913. That's again something I thought you would be interested at. The southern foot of number 5 road, Woodward's Landing Ferry began. Now in 1914, And you'll see pictures of this, of course. The Interurban, going to Steveston, began at a station in Vancouver called Granville Street Depot. It was very inconvenient, and I'll leave describing it until the photo, and then you'll see very clearly how it worked. Something had to be done. So a new depot was built in 1914, and if you can believe it, this is how it was done. Here's Granville Bridge, the old one. Some of you may remember it. You came onto Granville Bridge, of course from Granville, but also from 4th. Well, the Interurban went to Kitsilano, so at 3rd, BC Electric built a double track up to the bridge. Not quite. They built a beautiful depot there. You'll see photos of it. And this was a small masterpiece. How long did it last? It lasted till 1923. Why? Because in that year, we went from left-hand drive to right-hand drive. That depot on the west side, attached to the bridge as it were, allowed people to walk out of the depot onto a waiting streetcar and down to Hudson's Bay, if you'll pardon the expression. So that was a wonderful thing. But when we changed to right-hand drive, this meant passengers would have to cross in the teeth of other traffic on the left lane or on the right lane. Left lane coming towards you now, and this simply couldn't be done. It was far too dangerous. So this beautiful station lasted only 9 years, and the final station for the Steveston line went to, as I showed there in 1923, went to the corner of Richards and Seymour Streets. In 1920, the Marpole Depot that so many people got used to opened. And this is the point I think that I really must ask. How many rode the Interurban, Vancouver, Marpole, Steveston? Very few of us, about 4 of us. All right. 1924, Lansdowne Track opened, and it was exactly where the shopping mall is today. 1924, this is more important than it seems. By that time, trucks had become prevalent. There had been bridges at the end of Sea Island and over to Marpole since 1889. So that Interurban, which didn't have any passenger seats, and which took express, all kinds of material, flowers, dairy, and so on, that ended that year. So that was a signal that things that were motor driven were making the edge of the wedge. 1928, Lansdowne Track became the airport, and it would stay as the airport until 1931, when our airport began. 1929, May 19th, Steveston's beautiful depot, a CPR-style depot, was destroyed by fire, and tickets then were purchased at Tom Leslie's store. Tom Leslie did groceries, the usual, post office was there, he did real estate. You want to buy there, you went there. And so that's where you got your tickets now. And in 1929, this is the one thing I'd like to have done. I've seen pictures of it. From 1929 until 50, eat your hearts out, BC ferries. A car ferry ran from the foot of 7th Avenue in Steveston to Sydney. Twice a day, the Interurban, a regular scheduled Interurban, met it. If it was a little late, Tom Leslie would send someone out to the end of 7th and say, it's a little late, please hold the ferry. It's absolutely true. There is a beautiful picture I've seen, I don't have it, can't show it to you, of the wharf with the vehicles trundling onto the vessel. You say, how is the vessel, the Motor Princess? Beautiful. Built in 1923 by Yarrows in Victoria, the first diesel vehicle, first diesel vessel on either the Canadian or American coast. The fittings, I've seen pictures inside, were lush. They were really lovely. Here was our first car ferry. Can you imagine getting on? You played a round of golf at Colchester. You get on at 29th, and where are you going? I'm going over to Victoria. That way? Of course, of course. You rode out to Steveston, and the connection was, nothing's going to be missed. The ferry will be held, whatever. And then onto the ferry, over to Sydney, and your brother-in-law is picking you up in Sydney and taking you down to wherever in Victoria. Imagine, for 21 years, the freight building, because this was a feature of the line. Much freight was carried. Okay. This is the new station. You're on Moncton, you're looking to the south. And the station's on the left, as you can see. It's not much more than a platform and somewhat of a shelter. That's it, looking north. Moncton Street in front of the tram, and you would wait there, and the Interurban ran every hour. Between Vancouver and Marpole, every half hour. You have a facsimile ticket in front of you on the table for 13 cents, and you may be wondering what that was. That was the final fare to Steveston from Marpole, 13 cents. This is south and west of the station. In other words, if you know Steveston today and didn't know it 30 years ago, you wouldn't believe that this was there. But you'll remember the canneries, the shipbuilding. So the tracks went far beyond and devolved into different spurs to deal with all the industry that was in Steveston. Ah, the Interurbans were beautiful. They were beautiful. Jade green with gold lettering, and each one had a name. There were 16 of them. BC Electric built them in their own shop in New Westminster between 1904 and 1907. 16 of them, and lovely colored glass above the windows, and they were double-ended, as you can see by that monstrous pilot, which would more than catch one cow, I'm sure. It had that same configured cowcatcher at the other end. Now, when did this change? As I mentioned before, and as most of you probably know, we were really gaining in population. We had to be able to couple the interurbans, make 2-car trains, occasionally 3 cars. So those big cowcatchers, pilots, had to be removed, and end doors had to be cut in so that there could be communication from car to car. But for that brief period of time, 1905 to 1912, these cars flashing through. I would give my whole CD collection to be able to see what I'm doing here right now. All right, okay. Now, this tells you where from 1905 to 1914 the station was, Granville Street Station. Can you see Granville Bridge in the background? You're looking east. You're looking east, and you can see just a bit of the roof and flashing of the small depot to the left. How did you get to this depot? Oh, there was a wonderful staircase off the bridge, and you clambered down that staircase, you came here, and you got on your Interurban. This was always a difficulty for the line out to Steveston. You never got downtown. Even with the new depot, it was at Richards and Seymour. You still had to get on to another streetcar to get down to Woodward, Spencer, Deaton's, and the Bay. So that's what you had to do, and you really came down the steps to this station. Notice, the end doors have been cut in. This is now a multiple unit, Interurban. The name's gone, the number's there, and look at some of the staff. Conductor, motorman, of course, and brakeman. In Victoria, for their Interurban line, they call the motorman motorneer. Motorman sounds good. Okay. One more look at what the cars look like. There wasn't a better Interurban car in Canada or the United States, and that's not just lightly said. This was the era of the Interurban. It was a short era, basically from the 1890s till early 1920s, and then we got automobiles. The Interurban era could be called as long as 30 years, but no longer, which makes it even more extraordinary that our Interurban lasted till 1958. By the way, on your sheet with the dates, I set in the date of Oak Street Bridge purposely. This is a sea change. This changed everything. This was the last Interurban operation in Canada. It was the last, as far as the US is concerned, except the one that ran from Portland to Catanzaro in Oregon. Okay. That's the station. This is Granville. You're looking north towards downtown, and it's still left-hand drive. So the streetcar to take you downtown is going to come on the tracks that you see most easily. The Interurbans are just on the other side of this. All of the timbers that went to holding this building up. Newspapers were full of architects' drawings of this. This is almost like the Louvre. This was special. But you can see when we changed the rule of the road in 9 years, people would have had to cross that track to get over to this side. And this was what amounts to 3rd and Granville, whereas we came onto the bridge from 4th. That's the west side. Fine looking piece of wood. And next, who is everybody there? Wouldn't it be interesting to know? Maybe an ancestor of one of you. Maybe someone you didn't want to hear about it yet. But there it is. That's the terminal I grew up with. This is the one from 1923 to the end, 1952, when Vancouver Marpole stopped. Now, you're looking at that and you're saying, Henry, this is not a very prepossessing work of architecture, is it? It was something else, and BC Electric bought it, obviously, reworked it, refurbished it. Crews stayed in there. There were sleeping facilities on the top floor, and there was a good-sized waiting room, and of course the Interurban stopped in the middle of the street to let you on. Here it is. It's on Davie. Granville Cross is in the background. You're looking west. And the person taking the picture is virtually in front of that depot. This is the closest the Steveston line ever got to central downtown Vancouver. This is at 22nd and Arbutus. This is car 1207. When it was built, it was named Steveston. There were 3 Interurban cars which operated on that first day in 1905, Ebern, Richmond, and Steveston. Richmond became 1205, Ebern 1206, 1207 was Steveston. On the first day, and it still exists. Okay? That's the inside. And it looks like that. It's wood. A section for non-smokers with rattan seats, and a section for smokers with little metal butting receptacles and wooden seats. You wouldn't want those smokers to burn up the rattan. Impossible. Ah, there's a picture by Vic Sharman. This is 29th station on the Vancouver Marpole section. Was there a station on the southbound side as well? There was, but it wasn't a covered one. It was a simple platform. I disliked the station massively. As much as I like Luncheon Golf Course there, and of course here. I despised it. And I don't think you have any idea why. My music lessons were downtown. I came home this way, and where you just saw the 1207, it's going to make that little curve, and it's going to run alongside Luncheon Golf Course. The motormen knew, they all knew. Passengers knew. This was Indianapolis Speedway. And no one wanted to stop at 29 because the Interurban car would have had to slow down and stop. That's terrible. So you hoped I wasn't the only one. I might have been the most vociferous one, of course, going to Steveston. Okay? I think you've probably concluded in a and here it comes, and this station, someone asked me today, why was it called Tux? It was called Tux without an apostrophe because Mr. Tuck was the original bridge tender, and it was named sensibly after him, that first station. By the way, it drove conductors crazy, especially on a two-car interurban train filled with people. It's just left Marpole, you're starting your walk, punching tickets and so on, and someone wants to get off at Tux, which is about 3 minutes after leaving Marpole. Deal with these people. All right. Bridgeport was a big, big stop. Very big. Next. Well, this is still a Bridgeport, or again a Bridgeport. This track intrigued me. This spur track headed along Bridgeport on the north side, and it went almost to the river. I often dreamt as a kid of seeing a train there. And of course I didn't. Ah, Sexsmith Station. This is right in the middle of what is now Garden City. Right in the middle. This is Canby, and right about where the photographer is, just behind him, is where the substation was built. You have that on your chronological list as well. Right here. Lansdowne. Next. And here's the spur. You've got it on your map. I should mention now, done by a good friend who did all the maps in my first book. There's a copy of my first book over there. Dave Royce, late Dave Royce, an extraordinary person. Engineer, map drawer, cartographer par excellence, and pastor of the gospel. Now, this, if you know Richmond, this is on a lovely wide curve as you're driving down Garden City, and it settles beautifully over to Granville Avenue. And I know you say to yourself, why is this so beautiful when I have to make sharp right-hand turns everywhere else in the world? It's because it was built for CPR's steam locomotives to go around Garden City Station. Okay? Well, Number 3 road, Rig House. This is a big stop. And you're looking west. Go right away to the next one, Taylor, please. Now you're looking east. See the station, you see a boxcar in the siding, and this is number 3 road. And the first McDonald's restaurant, it's just to the right. First McDonald's restaurant in Canada. This is an interurban train. Those are all interurbans, even the first one, which is an express interurban, and those folks are all going to Brighouse. They're all going to the track, and there's a large loop. This is one of the few pictures at that point. Automobile included. Riverside. Lulu. And there's the Big Bend. This is Granville. This is Railway Avenue. And this right away, I'm going to refer to it in a few moments. And of course, you're looking north. This is taken right as the motorman stops at McAllen Road. George Bergson said to me in 1955, we were in school together, he said, you know, I don't think anybody's ever taken pictures of the stations. He lived at 46 in Maine, I lived at 60th. But we got on our bikes, cameras, and we drove out, and we took pictures of all the stations on the Steveston line in 1955. And this is one of them. I don't remember her name, but she looks very pleased to be waiting for the interruption. So we're going straight down now. Here we go. Okay. This is from the Interurban motorman's front end. Next. Now you can see what that is. Branscombe. This is, yes, Woodward's. Cottages. Yes. Next. And this is at Steveston, at the very end of the line. Moncton Street in the background. And the beautiful 1220 sits in its wonderful, wonderful building just across from here, and the single track is still across the road. Next. Last trip. This is the 1 a.m. trip on the last day of scheduled service. It's just arrived in Marpole, so it's about 1:25. The place is, the Interurban is packed. It's full of silly people like me. Someone took a picture, it's somewhere, I don't have it in my possession, of me, and I have a gray suit on. I'm looking sparkling, I'm looking totally out of place, tie and whatnot, and I think I was going, that was my graduating year at UBC, and I think I was going to have my photograph taken. But that was the last Interurban 1225. And you might say, it's too bad it's not around. Yes, it is. I'll tell you in a moment. It's very much around. As a matter of fact, starting the first Sunday in May, you can ride it. Talked to him many, many times. Laurie Love. He was conductor on the last scheduled train, and there he was. There he is. He looks all too happy, but we'll let him take it. And I think this is my last picture. As your note says, the dinner was had at Brighouse United Church. Transportation president of East Electric, S. Sigmundson, gave a great speech, apparently, widely reported in all our media, as they were at that time. And the trains have returned. 2 of them, 2 Interurban cars in each, and here's 1207. It still exists, right here. People are going home. The depot will be shut very shortly. Cable, I think that's it. It is indeed. Now, a couple words at the very end. Now then, what's left? What's still to be seen? Marvelously, Exhibit A is in Steveston. And I don't mean just the original track on Moncton Street, just east of number 1 Road, but Interurban car 1220, resplendent in its own purpose-built exhibition structure. Open regularly for us to relish, and the car is on the original track alignment. Exhibit B, this is so exciting. I'm excited by it. Is surely the original right-of-way from north of McAllen Road, where we saw our waiter for the Interurban sitting, south, reconstituted as a splendid walkway. It's beautiful. You might say, what's beautiful about a straight line blacktop? I don't care, it's beautiful. Very nice. Along the way, if you look carefully, you'll see to the west 3 garden sheds, each on widely separated properties, painted in the same colors as the original stations on the line. And I know what you'll say, no, it's not. It's a garden shed. But there are 3 on different disconnected properties and very close. But there's more, and I close. In Cloverdale, the Fraser Valley Historical Railway Society, of which I'm a founding board member and historian in residence, operates 3 Interurban cars. 1225, which made the very last revenue trip between Marpole and Steveston. Car 1231, the last Interurban car ever to even run on BC Electric track. And 1304, the former Chilliwack and Royal Interurban car. The 4th, that's the prize. Car 1207. It operated on the Steveston line's opening day, and it was new. And on the last day, 53 years later, and it survives the only one of BC Electric's new Westminster-built cars, the car originally named Steveston, the quintessential symbol of the opening up of Richmond to the world. It's 120 years old, and it began operating when Vancouver was 19 years old. Our other 3 Interurban cars operate because of the massive restoration projects that had to be endeavored and developed for each one in turn. Our society anticipates that the full restoration and rehabilitation process for car 1207 Steveston will take approximately 4 years to complete, with costs approaching $800,000. This is an ambitious project, but one that we believe is well worth the effort to preserve such a vital part of Richmond's transit heritage. We invite anyone interested in providing support to assist with this important legacy restoration project to contact our society. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you this afternoon. A real pleasure for me.
I do envy you, and I envy you and Harold for having been able to ride those as kids on or too late. In some ways, I don't envy you. That was really, really wonderful, and thank you very much, and thank you all for coming. These events that we are doing every year, that we try to do every year, everyone is a little bit different, and again, thank you for your support of the Vancouver Historical Society. I invite you all, please, to have a look. People have brought these beautiful exhibitions, and have another look. There's no reason to rush off, I don't believe, from here. And thanks very much. And just on a personal note, this is, I believe this will be about the last public event for Vancouver Historical Society that I will do as president. And so I thank you all for your support over the years, and I look forward to continuing to see you at the lectures, and I hope you will come to the lectures and then also watch these marvelous videos that Ellen Shia, who's at the back, has been doing for us for the past 9 years. So thank you very much.
Thank you.